What happens when you frame the wrong person? When two corrupt cops in a sleepy Virginia town think they've pulled off the perfect setup, they have no idea who they're dealing with. On a quiet night in Arlington, a routine traffic stop spirals into a heart-pounding conspiracy, exposing a web of lies so twisted it'll leave you speechless. Meet Amara Steele, a woman who seems ordinary until you learn the truth. She's not just fighting for her freedom. She's about to bring down an empire of corruption. But what these officers don't know could destroy them. Stay with us as we unravel a story of betrayal, courage, and a twist so explosive it'll shake the foundations of justice itself. You won't believe what happens next. The night was heavy with silence in Arlington, Virginia, the kind of quiet that blankets a small town after midnight. Streetlights cast their pale glow over empty sidewalks, and the hum of a distant car was the only sound breaking the stillness. Amara Steele, a woman with sharp eyes and a calm that belied her strength, sat behind the wheel of her sleek black SUV. Her hands rested lightly on the steering wheel, her posture relaxed but alert. She glanced at her watch, 12:17 a.m. The day had been long, her covert work in this unassuming town nearly complete. One more meeting, one more piece of intel, and she'd be gone, leaving no trace. Amara wasn't just any woman. She was a CIA operative, a shadow moving through the world's darkest corners, trained to see what others missed. Her mission in Arlington had been simple: infiltrate, observe, report. But as she approached a quiet intersection, her instincts sharpened. She slowed, her eyes catching the glint of a stop sign reflecting her headlights. She came to a full stop, her training ensuring no detail was overlooked. Then, she turned left. Moments later, red and blue lights erupted behind her, slicing through the night. A siren wailed, sharp and piercing, shattering the calm. Amara's pulse didn't quicken. She was built for this. Her mind clicked into gear, analyzing every detail. She glanced in the rearview mirror, watching the squad car close in, its headlights casting stark shadows across her dashboard. With practiced ease, she pulled to the side of the road, turned off the engine, and reached for her license and registration. Two officers stepped out of the patrol car, their silhouettes deliberate against the flashing lights. The driver, tall and broad-shouldered, moved with an air of authority. His partner, shorter and heavier, followed close behind. Their navy blue uniforms bore the Arlington Police Department insignia, their badges gleaming under the streetlights. Amara noted their names: Officer Derek Holt and Officer Nathan Brooks. "Good evening, ma'am," Holt said, his voice laced with a practiced edge as he leaned toward her window, flashlight sweeping across her face. "You know why we pulled you over?" Amara met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "No, officer," she said evenly. "I wasn't speeding, and I stopped at the sign." Holt's lips twitched into a smirk. "Actually, you rolled through that stop sign back there. That's a violation." Her brow lifted slightly, but her voice remained steady. "I'm certain I stopped, officer." "License and registration," Holt cut in, his tone sharpening. Amara handed over her documents, her movements deliberate. She watched Holt's eyes linger on her license, his demeanor shifting subtly as he processed her identity. "Virginia plates, local address," he muttered, then louder. "You live around here?" "Yes," Amara replied, her tone neutral but firm. Brooks, lingering near the rear of her SUV, suddenly called out, "Hey, Holt, you might want to check this out." Holt passed her documents back and motioned for her to stay put before joining his partner at the trunk. Amara's eyes flicked to her side mirror, catching their hushed exchange. Brooks pointed at something, his movements theatrical. A flicker of unease stirred in her chest. Not fear, but the sharp instinct of a trap closing in. Holt returned, his expression now cold. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." "May I ask why?" Amara's voice was calm, questioning. "We have reason to believe you're in possession of illegal substances," Holt said, his words clipped, almost rehearsed. Amara's eyes narrowed. "Illegal substances? You're mistaken. We'll see about that," Holt replied, gesturing for her to exit. Brooks was already at the trunk, lifting it with a flourish to reveal a small, unmarked bag sitting conspicuously at the edge. Well, Brooks said, his voice dripping with mock surprise. What do we have here? Looks like a bag of something naughty. Amara's gaze flicked to the bag, then back to the officers. Her face remained impassive, but her mind raced. That bag wasn't hers. She'd check her vehicle before leaving, standard protocol. This was a setup, and it was sloppy. Holt's smirk widened. Anything you want to tell us? Amara's lips curved into a faint, calculated smile. I'll save my comments for the right moment. Holt's chuckle was cold. Oh, you have plenty of time to talk. You're under arrest for possession with intent to distribute. As Brooks moved to cuff her, Amara didn't resist. Her gaze locked onto his, steady and unflinching. You're making a mistake, she said softly, her voice carrying a quiet menace that made Brooks hesitate for a split second before snapping the cuffs into place. Yeah, we'll see, Holt said, leading her to the squad car. As they drove away, Amara stared out the window, her mind already mapping her next moves. These officers thought they'd score an easy win, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. The trap they'd set was about to snap back on them. But what was in that bag? And why was Amara so calm? The truth was far bigger than anyone in that squad car could imagine. The ride to the station was silent, save for the hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of the police radio. Amara sat in the back seat, her hands cuffed behind her, her posture composed. The streetlights painted fleeting shadows across her face, but her eyes remained fixed ahead, sharp and calculating. She replayed every moment of the stop, the fabricated violation, the planted bag, the officer's smug confidence. This wasn't random. It was orchestrated, and she was going to find out why. Holt glanced at her through the rearview mirror, his smirk returning. You're awfully quiet back there. Not scared. Amara met his eyes in the mirror, her voice steady. Should I be? Holt laughed, shaking his head. Tough talk. Let's see how you hold up in a cell. Amara didn't respond. She didn't need to. Men like Holt thrived on control, on the illusion of power. She'd dealt with their kind before, corrupt, arrogant, and dangerously overconfident. For now, she let them think they had the upper hand. The Arlington police station was a squat, aging building with peeling paint and flickering fluorescent lights. Inside, the night shift officers lounged behind desks, sipping coffee and exchanging low murmurs. Holt and Brooks led Amara through the bullpen, their steps deliberate, almost performative. Got a live one tonight, Holt announced, his voice carrying across the room. Heads turned, curiosity peaked. Brooks tossed the bag of powder onto the counter with a theatrical thud. Caught her red-handed, Brooks said, grinning. Looks like she's been running more than stop signs. Amara remained silent, her eyes scanning the room. She noted the placement of cameras, the layout of the desks, the casual camaraderie among the officers. This was a tight-knit group, bound by unspoken loyalties. She'd seen it before, small-town stations where secrets festered like rot. They led her to a fingerprinting station, where Holt removed her cuffs. A younger officer, his badge reading Officer Ethan Cole, worked the station. His tired eyes met hers briefly, and she caught a flicker of unease in his expression. Name? Cole asked, his tone softer than the others. Amara Steele, she replied evenly. Occupation? She paused, choosing her words carefully. Security consultant. It was vague enough to pass, true enough to avoid scrutiny. Cole nodded, typing quickly, his discomfort palpable. Holt and Brooks, however, were oblivious, chuckling as they leaned against the counter, reveling in their apparent victory. You've got a smart mouth, Holt said, his tone darkening. Let's see how it holds up in lockup. Amara's cell was a cold, dimly lit box with a metal bench bolted to the wall. The bars cast long shadows across the concrete floor, and the faint hum of the station's HVAC system buzzed overhead. She sat, her back straight, her posture unyielding. Holt lingered outside the bars, watching her with a mix of curiosity and disdain. You don't look like the type to get mixed up in this, he said, almost conversationally. But don't worry, the judge'll love a good sob story. Amara tilted her head, her gaze locking onto his. Or maybe they'll see through yours. Holt's smirk faltered, and he muttered something under his breath before walking away. Alone in the cell, Amara leaned back against the wall, exhaling slowly. She wasn't worried about herself. She was worried about what this setup meant. Someone had targeted her specifically, and she needed to know who and why. Amara wasn't just fighting for her freedom. She was fighting for every person who'd been silenced, framed, or forgotten by a system that protected the guilty. But what was she hiding? And what would happen when her true identity came to light? In the station's break room, Holt and Brooks sat back with steaming mugs of coffee, their laughter filling the cramped space. "She thinks she's untouchable," Brooks said, shaking his head. "Did you see her face? Not a flicker of panic." "Yeah, well, that'll change," Holt replied, smirking. "She's just another name in the system now. Nobody's digging too deep. Besides," Brooks added, "we've got the evidence. Airtight." Neither noticed Cole lingering nearby, his face pale, his eyes darting toward the holding cells. Something about Amara's arrest didn't sit right with him. She wasn't like the others, scared, defiant, or pleading. She was different, too calm, too composed. And that bag in her trunk? It was too convenient, like it had been placed there for them to find. Cole returned to his desk, his fingers hovering over his keyboard. He pulled up Amara's file, scanning the sparse details. Her address checked out, but her employment history was vague, too vague. Security consultant could mean anything. He glanced at the surveillance monitor, where Amara sat motionless in her cell, her eyes half closed but alert. Who was she? Back in her cell, Amara waited. Patience was her weapon, honed over years in the field. She knew her team would find her soon. Her absence would trigger alarms, and her tracker, a tiny device hidden in her jacket, had already sent a silent signal. For now, she played the part of the unassuming detainee, blending into the background. But her mind never stopped working. She noted the officers' routines, the placement of cameras, the faint hum of the station's computers. Every detail was a piece of the puzzle. As the hours ticked by, a black sedan pulled into a lot across town. Inside, a team of agents watched a blinking dot on a screen, Amara's tracker. "She's in play," one said. But what were they planning? And who was watching from the shadows, ready to strike? Dawn crept through the narrow window of Amara's cell, casting a pale glow on the concrete walls. She hadn't slept, her mind too sharp, too focused. The station was waking up, the day shift officers shuffling in with coffee cups and tired greetings. Amara listened, cataloging their voices, their footsteps. Brooks appeared at her cell, clipboard in hand, his smirk as smug as ever. "Morning, princess," he said, his tone mocking. "Sleep well. Or was the bench too hard for you?" Amara met his gaze, her silence cutting deeper than words. Brooks shifted, unnerved by her calm. "Bail hearings this afternoon," he said, tapping his clipboard. "But don't get your hopes up. Judges don't take kindly to dealers." "Good to know," Amara replied, her voice soft but edged with steel. Brooks frowned, his confidence wavering, and walked away. Amara leaned back, her mind racing. The hearing was a formality. She'd be out before then. But the setup gnawed at her. Why her? What did they know? At the front desk, Cole's unease grew. He'd processed dozens of arrests, but Amara's case felt wrong. Her calm, her words, they stuck with him. He pulled up her arrest report, scanning Holt and Brooks' narrative. Failed to stop at marked intersection. Driver exhibited nervous behavior. Consent to search granted. Controlled substances found. Cole muttered under his breath. Nervous behavior? She was calm as ice. The report felt scripted, too neat. He glanced at the break room, where Holt and Brooks were laughing over donuts, their carefree demeanor grating against his growing doubt. Cole was a rookie, trained to follow orders, to trust the system. But what do you do when the system is the problem? When the people you're supposed to respect are the ones breaking the law? Cole's fingers hesitated over his keyboard. He knew the station's unspoken rules. Don't question senior officers. But the doubt was a splinter in his mind, impossible to ignore. He waited until Holt and Brooks left the room, then slipped into the records archive. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as he logged into the system, searching for past cases tied to the two officers. What he found made his stomach churn. Dozens of arrests followed the same pattern. Minor violations escalating to drug charges, mostly against people of color. Convictions were swift, alibis ignored. Cole's heart pounded. This wasn't a mistake. It was a playbook. Back in her cell, Amara made her move. She shifted on the bench, her hand brushing the hem of her jacket. Hidden in the stitching was her tracker's activation switch. She pressed it, the motion subtle but deliberate. The signal was live. Her team would move soon. Across town, a secure operations room lit up with screens. Amara's tracker blinked steadily. "She's ready," an agent said, but someone else was watching, someone who knew more than they should. Who was it, and what did they want with Amara? In the break room, Holt leaned back, sipping coffee. "You see Cole today?" he asked Brooks. "Kid's acting jumpy." Brooks shrugged. "Rookies get like that. Thinks he's Sherlock or something." "Let's hope he doesn't start digging," Holt said, his tone darkening. "Last thing we need is a nosy kid." Unbeknownst to them, Cole was already digging. Back at his desk, he stared at the list of cases, each one a mirror of Amara's. His hands shook as he opened a secure email channel. He typed quickly, attaching the files he'd found. "To whom it may concern, something's wrong at this station. Please help." He hit send, his heart racing. He didn't know who would see it, or if they'd care, but he couldn't stay silent. In her cell, Amara sensed a shift. The station's rhythm had changed, a subtle tension threading through the air. She watched Cole pass her cell, his steps slower, his expression conflicted. She caught his eye, her voice low but firm. "You've seen something, haven't you?" Cole froze, his hand gripping the wall. I'm just doing my job." "Are you?" Amara asked, her gaze piercing. "Or are you doing what they expect you to do?" Cole's face flushed. He stammered, then walked away, her words echoing in his mind. Amara leaned back, a faint smile on her lips. The seed was planted. Across town, a black sedan parked outside a nondescript building. Inside, a man in a tailored suit, Agent Marcus Reed, watched a screen showing Amara's tracker. "Signal confirmed," he said. "She's ready." Another agent, a woman with sharp eyes, nodded. "The kid's email just came through. He's our in." Reed's lips curved into a faint smile. "Perfect. Let's move." But Amara wasn't just a random target. Years ago, she'd grown up in Arlington, a fact she'd buried deep. Someone in the station knew her past, and they wanted her silenced. But who? And why now? The station buzzed with its usual chaos, but an undercurrent of unease rippled through. Cole paced near the holding cells, his eyes darting to Amara's cell. She sat motionless, her calm unnerving. He stopped, his voice low. "What did you mean earlier? About them counting on me?" Amara's gaze was steady. "You know what I mean, Ethan. You've seen the patterns. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Cole's jaw tightened. He walked away, but her words clung to him. Back at his desk, he stared at the email confirmation, his heart pounding. He'd crossed a line, and there was no going back. At that moment, the station's front doors swung open. 3 agents in crisp black suits stepped inside, their badges gleaming. The lead agent, Marcus Reed, approached the desk, his voice calm but commanding. "We need access to your records and holding cells." Now, the desk sergeant, a grizzled veteran named Walsh, hesitated. "What's this about?" "Federal investigation," Reed replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. The station fell silent, officers exchanging wary glances. Holt and Brooks, standing near the break room, froze, their laughter dying. Cole watched, his pulse racing. Had his email done this? Reed's team moved with precision, setting up in an interrogation room. They plugged into the station's network, pulling files at lightning speed. "Look at this," the tech agent said, pointing to the screen. "Same narrative, same charges, same officers. It's a pattern." Reed nodded, his jaw tight. "Pull everything. We're taking this apart." In her cell, Amara felt the shift. Her team was here. She stood, her movements smooth, as the cell door buzzed open. An agent stepped inside. "Amara Steele, you're free to go." She nodded, stepping into the hallway. As she passed Cole's desk, their eyes met. "Thank you," she said softly. Cole swallowed. nodding back, a weight lifting from his chest. But as Amara walked toward freedom, a figure watched from the shadows of the station, a familiar face from her past. Who was it, and what did they know about her mission? In an interrogation room, Holt and Brooks sat across from Reed, their bravado crumbling. Reed slid photos across the table, security footage showing them planting the bag in Amara's trunk. Care to explain? He asked, his voice cold. Holt's jaw clenched. Doesn't prove anything. We were securing evidence. Reed leaned forward. Really? Because we have audio, your conversation about framing her, and records of dozens of similar arrests. This ends now. Brooks paled, his hands shaking. You can't use that. It's entrapment. It's justice, Reed said, his tone final. As the agents led Holt and Brooks away in cuffs, the station erupted in murmurs. Amara stood at the entrance, watching the scene unfold. Her eyes caught a figure in the corner, Sergeant Walsh, the desk sergeant. Their gazes locked, and a chill ran through her. She knew him. Years ago, when she was a teenager in Arlington, Walsh had been a beat cop. Sergeant Walsh wasn't just a bystander. He was the key to the setup, a man with a grudge against Amara's family. As a young cop, he'd known her father, a local activist who challenged the department's practices decades ago. Walsh had never forgotten the humiliation of those public confrontations, and when Amara returned to Arlington under an alias, he recognized her. This wasn't just another frame job. It was personal. Amara stepped out of the station, the crisp night air hitting her face like a wave of freedom. But as she walked toward the waiting black sedan, her instinct screamed. Walsh's stare had been too knowing, too heavy with unspoken history. She paused, her hand brushing the tracker in her jacket, her mind racing. Had he orchestrated this? And if so, how deep did this go? Amara wasn't just a CIA operative. She was a daughter carrying the weight of her father's legacy, a man who'd fought corruption in this very town and paid a heavy price. Every step she took was a step toward redeeming his name. But at what cost? She slid into the sedan, where Agent Marcus Reed waited. You okay? He asked, his voice gruff but warm, a rare crack in his professional veneer. I'm fine, Amara said, her tone clipped. But this isn't over. Walsh knows something. Reed's eyes narrowed. You sure? I grew up here, Marcus, she admitted, the words heavy with a past she rarely spoke of. My father was a thorn in this department's side. Walsh was there back then. He hasn't forgotten. Reed's jaw tightened. Then we dig deeper. If Walsh is the puppet master, we'll cut the strings. As the sedan pulled away, a shadow moved in the station's parking lot. A figure in a hooded jacket watched Amara leave, clutching a burner phone. A single text lit up the screen. She's out. Plan B now. Who was pulling Walsh's strings, and what was their endgame? Officer Ethan Cole sat at his desk, his hands still trembling from the day's events. The station was a pressure cooker, officers whispering in corners, their trust in each other fraying. Cole had crossed a line by sending that email, and he felt the weight of it. Holt and Brooks were in custody, but the looks he'd gotten from other officers, some supportive, others venomous, told him he'd made enemies. Cole's mind drifted to his own past. He'd joined the force to make a difference, inspired by his older brother, a cop who died in the line of duty 3 years ago. But his brother had warned him about places like Arlington. Small towns hide big secrets, Ethan. Watch your back. Now, those words echoed like a prophecy. He glanced at the surveillance monitor, now empty where Amara's cell had been. Her words haunted him. You always have a choice. He'd made his, but at what cost? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You did the right thing. Stay sharp. Cole's heart skipped. Was it Amara? Her team? Or someone else entirely? He deleted the message, his pulse racing, and vowed to keep digging. Ethan wasn't just a rookie caught in a scandal. He was a young man honoring his brother's memory, torn between loyalty to the badge and loyalty to the truth. Every choice he made pushed him closer to danger or redemption. In a secure FBI operations room across town, Amara sat with Reed and his team, screens glowing with data. The tech agent, Sarah Lynn, scrolled through files, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Holt and Brooks weren't working alone, she said. Their reports are cookie cutter, but someone signed off on them. Walsh's name is on half these cases. Amara leaned forward, her eyes narrow. He's the gatekeeper. Nothing happens in that station without his approval. Reed nodded. Then we bring him in. But we need more than suspicion. If he's connected to your past, Amara, we need to know how far this goes. Amara's jaw tightened. Her father, James Steele, had been a community organizer in Arlington, rallying against police misconduct in the 90s. His protests had led to Walsh's demotion after a public scandal, a fact Walsh had clearly never forgiven. Amara had left town as a teenager, her identity buried to protect her new life as an operative. But coming back to Arlington for this mission had been a risk, and Walsh had seen through her alias. I need to see his file, Amara said. Everything, disciplinary records, financials, contacts. Lynn hesitated. If we pull Walsh's records without clearance, it could tip him off. Do it, Amara said, her voice steel. He targeted me for a reason. I want to know why. As Lynn hacked into Walsh's records, a hidden alert triggered on his personal phone. Someone was watching the watchers. But who was one step ahead? That night, Amara sat alone in a safe house, a modest apartment on the edge of town. The dossier for her next mission lay unopened on the table. She couldn't focus. Her mind was on Walsh, on her father, on the town she'd sworn never to return to. Growing up, Arlington had been her home, but it was also where her father had been discredited, his reputation smeared after a false arrest. The parallels to her own setup were too stark to ignore. Her phone buzzed, an encrypted message from an unknown source. Meet me at the old pier. Midnight. Come alone. Amara's pulse quickened. It could be a trap, but she couldn't ignore it. She slipped a knife in her boot, checked her sidearm, and headed out. The pier was a derelict relic, its wooden planks creaking underfoot. The Potomac River lapped softly against the shore, the air thick with mist. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman, mid-40s, with sharp features and a nervous energy. Amara's breath caught. Lena, she whispered. Lena Carter, her childhood friend, now a local journalist, stepped into the moonlight. I knew it was you, Amara, she said, her voice trembling. I saw the arrest on the news. Walsh has been waiting for you to come back. Lena wasn't just a friend. She'd been working with Walsh, feeding him information about Amara's return. But now, racked with guilt, she was ready to talk. He's not alone, Lena said. There's someone higher up, someone with power. They wanted you out of the picture. Amara's heart pounded. Who? Lena hesitated, her eyes darting to the shadows. I don't know their name, but they're connected to D.C., big money, big influence. Before Amara could press further, headlights flared in the distance. Lena froze. They're here, she whispered. Tires screeched as a black SUV roared toward the pier. Amara grabbed Lena's arm, pulling her behind crate. Was this Walsh's doing, or had Lena betrayed her again? Amara and Lena ducked low as the SUV screeched to a stop. Two men in dark suits stepped out, their movements precise, professional. Not cops, private security, maybe mercenaries. Amara's training kicked in. She signaled Lena to stay quiet, her hand on her knife. Who are they? Lena whispered, her voice shaking. Shut up, Amara hissed, her eyes locked on the men. They swept flashlights across the pier, their steps deliberate. Amara's mind raced. If Walsh was working with someone in D.C., this was bigger than a small-town frame job. Her mission in Arlington had been to uncover a money-laundering scheme tied to local businesses. But now it seemed the stakes were higher, political, maybe even international. One of the men spoke into a comms device. No sign of her. Check the perimeter. Amara's blood ran cold. They weren't just looking for her. They were hunting her. She pulled Lena toward the water's edge, the river's current a low roar. Can you swim? She asked. Lena nodded, her eyes wide with fear. Amara didn't trust her. Not fully, but she needed answers. They slipped into the icy water, staying low as the flashlights swept overhead. Back at the FBI operations room, Reed and Lynn pieced together Walsh's records. Bank transactions linked him to an offshore account, funneled through a shell company in D.C. This goes way up, Lynn said, her voice tense. Politicians, maybe even a senator. Reed's eyes darkened. If Amara's right, Walsh is just the tip of the spear. We need to find her now. Amara wasn't just fighting for justice. She was fighting to reclaim her father's legacy, to prove he wasn't the criminal this town had branded him. But with every step, the danger grew. Could she trust Lena, or was she walking into another trap? The next morning, Amara and Lena reached a safe house, soaked and shivering. Amara interrogated Lena, her voice cold. "Why did you tip off Walsh?" Lena's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't have a choice. They threatened my family. Walsh said if I helped him, he'd protect us." "Who's they?" Amara pressed. "I don't know." Lena sobbed. "Someone with power. They knew you were CIA, Amara. They wanted you discredited before you could expose their operation." Amara's mind spun. Her mission had been to investigate a local laundering ring, but it was clear now it was a front for something bigger, a network of corruption stretching to the capital. She contacted Reed, relaying Lena's intel. "We need to move fast," she said. "They're cleaning house." That afternoon, the courthouse was packed, reporters buzzing like flies. Holt and Brooks faced charges of evidence tampering, falsifying reports, and conspiracy. But the real showdown was Walsh. Reed's team had gathered enough to bring him in for questioning, and Amara insisted on being there. In the courtroom, Walsh sat stone-faced, his eyes locking onto Amara as she entered. The prosecutor laid out the case, doctored reports, planted evidence, and now, financial ties to a DC power broker. Walsh's composure cracked as Reed presented bank records and intercepted calls. "You thought you could bury me like you buried my father," Amara said, her voice low but cutting, as she faced Walsh in the witness box. "Your father was a troublemaker," Walsh spat. "And you know different." The gallery gasped. Amara leaned forward, her voice steady. "My father was a hero, and I'm going to finish what he started." As the gavel fell, a clerk slipped Reed a note. Senator's aide detained. Confessed to orchestrating the frame job. The conspiracy reached higher than anyone expected, implicating a powerful DC figure. But before Amara could celebrate, her phone buzzed. A new mission, urgent, pulling her away from Arlington. As Amara boarded a plane that night, a single question burned. Who was the mastermind behind the senator's aide? And how much deeper did this go? The fallout was seismic. Holt and Brooks were sentenced to 15 years each, their careers and reputations in tatters. Walsh faced multiple charges, his role as the linchpin exposed. The Arlington Police Department underwent a federal overhaul, with Cole emerging as a reluctant hero. He resigned weeks later, taking a job with a private security firm, determined to honor his brother's memory in his own way. Amara, now back in the shadows, opened the dossier for her next mission. The target, a DC insider tied to the Arlington conspiracy. She smiled faintly, the fight far from over. Amara had cleared her father's name, but the cost was personal. She'd lost her anonymity, her past exposed. Yet as she stepped into the night, she felt lighter. Justice wasn't just a job, it was her legacy. Want more stories of courage and conspiracy? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Don't miss what happens next.